Alright, so are these expensive Hornady A-tips worth it? What do you get inside the package? Well, when you open this up, you're going to find a bag. Now, the idea behind this is you're supposed to throw your bullets in here and wipe the oil off, because allegedly these come directly off the die, and they did have oil on them, and I had to wipe them off. Now, these are so expensive for two different reasons. One, they have an aluminum tip, which adds cost of material. Two, they're 100 consecutive bullet manufactured. They're made, like, this is 1 through 100 that came off of the particular machine. And as the machine wears out, the dies need to be replaced, so depending on what their allowable tolerances are, like, let's say, you know, it's within point whatever. So as the tooling wears, so say like you buy a box of bullets, a normal box of bullets, we'll just use this as an example. Halfway through this press, it got a new die. So you'll have a bunch that are a lot smaller, a bunch that are a lighter weight, than if it would have just run through. Because the die wears out and you get farther and farther out of tolerance, and now you jump back into tolerance, so there can be a drastic variance in bullets. So pulling them in actual lots in the order they were manufactured brings the consistency up. Otherwise, they'd just mass produce out, you know, they'd all fall into this big crate, and then the crate would be dumped into some sort of hopper that would count out how many, and then that would fill your box. That's not how these work. And I guess you can buy them in lots of 500 too. So, how much does that actually help? But first, let's talk about the projectile itself. So it's going to require a 1/9 twist rate for this 230 grain. And it's going to give you a BC of 8.23 or 0.823 on the G1 scale, which is pretty good. Now I was actually tallying up the overall length, but that was taking so long I just quit. But it's roughly 1.765 inches, give or take. They're going to come in a quantity of 100, or like I said, you could get it in a quantity of 500. Now, the biggest accuracy improvement I've ever done out of all my reloading, out of doing different trim lengths, chasing jump back and forth, trying different jump, different powder, is segregate my projectiles by weight. When every projectile that I'm shooting in a group size is exactly the same weight, my groups are noticeably smaller. Out of all the other little tricks I've done in reloading, that was the single one that gave me the most accuracy. So that's what I'm concerned most about. So I weighed all these, which kind of sucks because I'm going to have to weigh them later when I segregate them. But I did use a Hornady scale, so if the company wants to try to debunk this video, they're also debunking their own equipment. This isn't the most accurate, I shouldn't say that. This isn't the most reliable scale I've ever used, but it's good enough for this job. Alright, so we got one at 229.8 grains. We got 16 at 230 grains, 24 at 230.1, 31 at 230.2, 8 at 230.3, 6 at 230.4, 4 at 230.5, 6 at 230.6, 4 at 230.7. So what does that mean? Out of these 100 bullets, they varied less than 1 grain. That's 0.9 is still a lot, but that's a lot closer than normal. Now, I wanted to do something for comparison, so what I did is I took these 55 grain nozzlers, and I just pulled 20. I'm not going through this whole entire box. But I was seeing a similar variance. You're like, well, why does a Hornady A-tip cost so much more if you're getting the same variance as the nozzler? Ah, you got to put it into perspective. This nozzler projectile is only 55 grains. This is what, 4 times heavier? So, for the variance of what this nozzler is getting, if you were to apply that to these 230 grain A-tips, you would be looking at something like 4 times. So you'd be looking at a spread of plus or minus 4 grains. So that would put you from 228 all the way up to 232. So these bullets, in weight, are 4 times more accurate than the nozzlers. That's not bad at all. what would your group look like if you were to shoot these? Like, let's say you did a 100-shot group, and you've taken away all variables, your barrel isn't heating up, your barrel isn't cooling down, you don't pull any shots, like, it's a total machine shoot, everything's clamped down, you wait like 100 million hours in between each shot, this way you know each one is a cold bore shot. You're going to look at a very tight group of 55 projectiles. Now there's going to be 32 projectiles that are going to open up a little bit, depending on, the range, stuff like that will determine how much it's going to open up. And then you're going to have somewhere between 10 and 11 flyers. Now, what does that actually mean in real world? Well, you just don't know because there's human variables, stuff like that. Basically, at a very long range, you'd probably have 55 like this. Now, I'm making this shit up, just numbers so you can picture it in your head. 55 like this, then you'd have 32 outside like that, and then you'd have 10 or 11 flyers. Which isn't bad at all. That's if you just roll these into ammunition and shoot it. That's pretty damn good. You segregate them by weight. Obviously, each one would be a group. The only one that wouldn't really work out is 229.8 because you can't really add that to anything besides like 230, but still it's quite a bit of ways. I don't know what the hell happened with that projectile, why it's so much lighter. I should have probably actually measured that one in length. Maybe it's shorter too. But other than that, like how I load my ammo is I segregate them all by grain weight, and then I load a complete magazine with that particular grain weight. So as long as I'm in the same magazine, I will have a nice tight group. Now when I switch magazines, well, if my group changes a little bit, I just adjust or compensate for it, and I have an entire magazine shooting the exact same group. And that's how I recommend you load if you want to get extreme accuracy. I also did check, it does have enough bearing surface to set these deep enough to fit inside your Accuracy International magazines. Now, not that Savage one that's extra long for a 300 PRC, because obviously it don't fit in an Accuracy International chassis, but your standard 300 Win Mag Accuracy International magazines, you can set it deep enough so it will fit in here just fine with room to spare. So, let's swing back around. Would I buy these again? Their true advantages, you're supposed to just be able to load them in the cartridges and shoot very tight groups. Looking at how far the variance is, which is plus or minus 0.9, how many of those stayed in a small spot? Yes. If you just load these inside ammunition without segregating them, you're going to shoot respectable groups. Obviously, you can't do that if you're doing competition. You are still going to have to segregate them. But even if you did it on competition, out of a 100-shot group, you'd have 55 of them in a very nice tight group. So, can you just throw these in a casing with the exact amount of powder, primer, all that other good stuff and just shoot it? Yes. Now, you're not going to get perfect accuracy. You're going to have some variance there. But generally speaking, for whatever your purposes may be, that should work just fine. So you are getting what you pay for. And your time is money. It seriously is. Like if you were to apply how much time you work on reloading the ammunition, if you were to just spend that at a job, how much it would cost, would it cover the gap of how much this projectiles cost by saving you the time of not having to segregate it? Well, for me to segregate these, just going through one by one, throwing them on a scale, I spent a little over a half an hour. So for me, that would be like almost $20. So $20 off of this against, like, say, your basic A-tips or ELD match or VMAX. Oh my god, yeah, this was totally worth the cost. Because it's not... I'll have to pull prices and compare, but I don't think these are that much more. I want to say they're within $20. Now, obviously, if you make a lot less at work, then yeah, just buy these. Buy like a 230, they don't do VMAX, do they? Buy like a 230 ELD, and yeah, you'll have to segregate them. But for me, it's beneficial just to buy these because I don't really need to segregate them because I don't shoot competition, and the particular rifle I'm building will be inside of 1,000 yards normally, except when I take that ELD class, or extreme long, ELR class and shoot 1.5 miles, which I'll probably only do once in my life, so generally speaking, I'll only be shooting to 1,000 yards. So straight out of the package into the casing, these will most definitely cover my needs. But I hope this video helped you out. If you got more money than time, which most of us do, unless you're working at McDonald's, these are the way to go. You're working at McDonald's, then I would probably just get some cheap ELD or like maybe a Sierra Match King 230 or something like that, and just weigh them all, segregate them by weight, and you'll get the same results as this. However, you will not receive the high BC. And I'm not that awesome of a shooter, so the high BC helps me because it gives me a bigger margin of error. Because with a higher BC, I'm going to get less wind push, and I'm going to get less drop. Therefore, I don't have to be quite as precise with my wind calls or my elevation measurements. You still got to be precise, but not quite as precise. Anyway, hope this video helped you out. If you'd like to help support the channel, got my Patreon right there. I also have affiliate links in the description down below. Probably have a link for this scale. Just by clicking on those links, even if you don't buy what the link is for, I can still get a little kickback for it because you came there off my channel. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. And right there is my very first mistake. It's not the action I wanted, but it's the action I can get.
Oh, that's real good.
My house had got broken into. It's not the action I wanted, but it's the action I can get.
What a guy.